Du Bois County is moving a step closer to vote centers. We'll tell you more on what a study committee is doing to move the process forward. Plus, Jasper Mayor Terry Seitz talks country club tour and ribbon cuttings on this week's edition of Monday with the Mayor. And Indiana Lieutenant Governor Sue Ellspermann joins us this evening on Inform to talk state government and her 92 county tour. All of that and much more is up next here on the 18 WJTS News. Hello, I'm Bradford Raths. More on vote centers coming up in a minute, but we begin tonight with what happens when a deer crosses the interstate. A Kentucky man learned about this the hard way over the weekend as his car sustained $20,000 in damage after hitting a deer along Interstate 64 in southern Du Bois County. Du Bois County Sheriff's deputies say 57-year-old Daniel Froelich of Henderson, Kentucky was eastbound along I-64 at the 62.5-mile marker at 7:05 a.m. on Saturday morning when deputies say a deer entered the highway. Froelich could not stop in time and his SUV struck the deer. Froelich's vehicle was disabled due to the crash and stopped in the traveled portion of the highway, according to sheriff's deputies. Deputies say the accident was initially reported as an injury accident, but nobody was hurt. As I mentioned, Froelich's vehicle suffered about $20,000 worth of damage, according to sheriff's deputies. The Ferdinand Police Department, Ferdinand First Responders, Memorial Hospital EMS, and a wrecker from Berg's Garage assisted. In other news this evening, a St. Anthony man was seriously injured yesterday afternoon after his pickup truck landed in a ditch. Du Bois County Sheriff's deputies were called to an accident with injury along St. Anthony Road North, just south of the Schnellville Road intersection, just before 1 o'clock yesterday afternoon. Once they arrived at the scene, sheriff's deputies found a truck overturned in a ditch in the area, as was reported. The driver, 48-year-old Hugh Michael Miller of St. Anthony, was pulled from the truck by passerbys that stopped at the accident scene, according to deputies. Miller was taken to Memorial Hospital ER and was later airlifted to St. Mary's Hospital in Evansville for treatment. According to the preliminary investigation, Miller was traveling northbound along St. Anthony Road North when, for some reason, his truck left the east side of the roadway. The truck then slid across the road, continuing down an embankment before coming to rest on its top in a ditch filled with shallow water. Sheriff's deputies continue to investigate this accident. Miller's truck was totaled in the crash, and it is not determined at this point whether or not he will face charges. Indiana conservation officers, Memorial Hospital EMS, and the Celestine and the St. Anthony Fire Departments all assisted at the scene. Vote centers in Du Bois County have taken another step towards becoming reality with the determination of the number of locations that would be needed in the county. The 12-member Vote Center Study Committee that consists of Du Bois County commissioners, county council members, and officials from the Democratic and Republican parties are in the process of drafting a plan to address how the county would switch to vote centers in time for the 2014 election. The committee has settled on 7 voting center locations within the county. County officials say they are expecting that the switch will save the county some money in the long run for several reasons. One of those is the fact that vote centers typically utilize fewer poll workers. However, poll workers would likely have to train more rigorously than in the past in order to effectively operate the electronic poll books. Du Bois County Clerk Bridget Jarboe says there were some problems with strategic positioning in some areas of the county.
When we were putting a vote center in Birdseye, we ended up with this little area around St. Anthony that ended up kind of out in no man's land. They still would not have to drive any more than 10 miles, but it was kind of an area that was not encompassed by a 5-mile radius. So we re-studied it and talked about the number of voters that show up on Election Day at Schnellville versus the number that show up at the Birdseye location the day of voting.
Vote centers would be housed in public areas that have a lot of parking available, though specific locations have not exactly been determined as of yet. If the switch is made successfully prior to the 2014 election, Jarboe says some things will be different when you go to the polls in 2014.
Anywhere in Du Bois County, you may go vote the day of election. We will still do absentee voting the week prior, and then 28 days before we must be here in the courthouse. But the day of voting, the May primary and the general election, those 2 days you can vote at any one of the 7 vote centers. You don't have to go back to your precinct to be voting.
Electronic books would be utilized to sign voters in, but the same voting machines that were used in previous elections would be used in the voting centers. Early voting would remain largely the same as it was during the 2012 election. Electronic poll books had also been an issue among committee members, with several of them expressing concerns on how electronic poll books work. Jared Brady, a Robus Elections representative, attended a recent committee meeting and walked the committee members through the process. Information that voters submit when they register electronically would be uploaded to a database in real time. Once they arrive at a center, voters would hand their ID to a poll worker to be scanned via an electronic bar scanner. Voters would then have to sign in on an electronic signature pad similar to those used in department stores for credit card purchases. If someone did attempt to vote twice, a message would pop up during the sign-in process stating that that person had already voted. Once the plan for the vote centers is drafted, there will be no fewer than 2 town hall meetings that will be held to gauge the interest of voters in the new system. If the committee ultimately decides that it wants to move forward with the vote centers, it would have to be approved by the DuBois County Election Board and then filed with the state. Jarbo says the goal is for a plan to be in place by early 2014 before May's primary election. There are currently 7 counties across the state of Indiana that use vote centers and electronic poll books. Finally this evening, a new mattress franchise is now open in the city of Jasper. Pete and Chris Massett, along with their son Nick Dills, hosted a ribbon-cutting ceremony on Friday at their new America's Mattress store. The store is located in the 400 block of South Newton Street, right next to Papa John's Pizza. Dills says the idea for the new store came about after attending a show and finding out about a new franchising opportunity.
We were actually at a buying group show, and we were kind of walking through, and we saw that CERTA had a franchise opportunity, and we kind of said, well, that might be kind of cool for Jasper. You know, there's a lot of betting people in Jasper, but we figured, you know, we could do it maybe just a little bit better. You know, customer service, price points, things like that. We were just, and then we started talking to them, and it turned out, you know, we had to have a little bit of a niche, so we're pretty excited about it.
Dills says the family hopes the new business is a viable option for residents in the community.
I think this just gives the community another option. You know, there's a lot of options in Jasper. CERTA is the #1 name in the mattress business, and I just think it's a great option for people in Jasper to have great price points, and we just want to service Jasper the best we can.
The Massetts also own Sternberg's Furniture in Jasper. The family says this America's Mattress store is the first of several locations that are being planned across southern Indiana. There will be 2 employees at the new Jasper location, and the store will be open from 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. on Saturdays, and 10 a.m. till 4 p.m. on Sundays. You can visit americasmattress.com/Jasper for more information. Coming up after the break, Jasper Mayor Terry Seitz joins me for this week's edition of Monday with the Mayor Plus. Cold, cold, and just for a change of pace this week, more cold. That coming up in your local forecast, sports with Kurt Gooksell, and Inform featuring Indiana Lieutenant Governor Sue Ellspermann. That's all up next here on the 18 WJTS News. Local people watching local people.